Somayeh Salemi. Somayeh Salemi. Welcome to episode 33 of the FoodGrads Podcast, the podcast where we explore careers in the food, beverage, and hospitality industries. I'm your host, Veronica Hislop, a molecular science graduate student and career partner with FoodGrads. This week on the podcast, I interviewed Somayeh Salemi, business development specialist at Klever Equipped. Klever Equipped is a distributor of cutting-edge equipment who specialize in product security, sales, and services of smokehouses, fermenting, chilling, drying, and clean room equipment. In this episode, Somayeh talked to me about her role as a business development specialist and the story of how she transitioned from science to sales because of her love of talking with people. I learned about the process of getting a new piece of equipment into a manufacturing plant from start to finish and how something on that large of a scale can even be tracked. It always amazes me the coordination required for a production facility to do this monumental task. You can tell that Somayeh is passionate about what she does because it shows in this episode. I loved learning about her favorite pieces of equipment and the challenges she encountered throughout her career. This episode goes to show, again, that there's so many paths that you can take to get into the food industry. So, enough with that introduction. Let's get on with the show. Thank you for coming on the show. I really was interested in learning more about you when I was kind of checking out LinkedIn, and I had seen that you're the type of person who's curious about people and their journeys. And it was interesting to me that you had switched from like a pharmaceutical type of field into manufacturing equipment sales. Like, to me, that's like a big jump. So I knew I had to get you on the show. So thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Veronica. And this is my pleasure to just be here. And you were curious about my journey. So I'm here, and hopefully we start a good conversation here together.
I love it. So I think that I just want to go on that thread about learning more about your journey. But before we do jump into that, I wanted to know a little bit more about where you work and what you do right now. So could you tell me a little bit more about Klever Equipped Inc. and what you do there?
Sure. So Klever Equipped is a sole North America distributor of three leading names in food processing equipment. And the company that we actually work with them as our supplier, it's Travaglini from Italy, Fessman and KMA, a German-based company. So we distribute their cutting-edge equipment, and with our personalized approach, we modify it for our customers. The range of the equipment is included cooking, drying, chilling, fermentation, roasting, and baking system, also air filtration and clean room technology. I specifically work with meat and meat alternative product. And I am a business development specialist at Klever Equipped and enjoy working closely with our customers.
That's awesome. I'm so interested to learn and dive more into like how this type of equipment works, and not just or so the nitty gritty, but just more so it sounds like, Klever covers a wide range of stuff. And I've always found that, we talk so much about like the food industry, the actual manufacturing of the products, but the machines play such a huge role in that. But before I dive into that topic, I like to start off by knowing a little bit more about you and your career journey. So would you be able to walk me through the steps to how you got to where you are today?
Yes, definitely. My background, like I studied master in science. So basically I came from the science background, no any equipment or engineer background. I got my master in physical chemistry because when I was at high school, I was in love with chemistry. As a normal career path for someone who studied chemistry, so I started working as a quality control in a lab for almost 2 years. And on that time, I was, even just like really curious what's going on in the lab. Like I was figure out that I am more interested in knowing the logic behind how the equipment works and the supply chain of those different equipments. Also, what is the difference between the equipment for the same application? Why we choose this brand compared with the other brands. Besides that, I'm a really extroverted person and I wanted to talk with people. I felt that just staying in the lab and working maybe the same routine stuff, it's not something that I can deal for a long time. That is why I switched to sales. I start selling the laboratory equipment that I worked with them before for almost 7 years before I moved to Canada. When I came to Canada, it was extremely hard for me to start working as a salesperson and being in sales environment because I didn't have any existing customer and didn't know the culture in Canadian workplace. On top of that, I felt that I needed to know more about the regulation and update my education in some point. So I went to college again for about a year for a postgraduate program in food quality control and quality assurance. And I learned more about the food industry work here and how you have to be with your customer and doing sales. And then finally, after a little bit of working in some different places as a customer service, inside sales, even I try, IT to just learn talking with people. And finally, I found my current job at Klever Equipped, which is really aligned with my career path and my passion.
Oh, see, that makes a lot more sense now
Yes.
because I didn't understand where the jump was. And I know that a lot of people who do sometimes do, well, maybe not a lot, but I do know a few individuals who do go on to work at the companies that they use the equipment for in the lab. I know personally, and I'm like you, I do more so on the side of physical chemistry. And I always think about, for example, I do emulsion science, so I have to study the
Yes.
water and how big it is, and we use a piece of equipment called an NMR. And one of the things I'm like, how the heck does a magnet figure out the size of my water droplets? So I can see your like reason of thinking about how that transition happened.
Yes, because sometimes you are in the lab and this is something happen just, quickly with the equipment. For example, it needs an update or there's something that is like wrong and you have to just fix it, but it's not something big that you need to, waste your time on asking someone else to it. And in some way you have to be handy. And then if you know that kind of feeling that you can be also handy and know how the equipment work properly, so then maybe you are more independent person even in the lab and enjoy working.
I've had this problem happening yesterday, and with so much of this equipment, it's so specialized. It's not like you can just Google how to fix it. Like it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, right. Yeah, most of them they could be this way because they need the proper installation.
Exactly. And so seeing that it led you to working at Clever, how did you find that love of actual equipment? How did you decide to make the jump to the food industry? Because you did say you went back to school for a postgraduate degree. What was your thinking behind going back?
Generally, I just say people that doing a business or being in business environment is a little bit or maybe sometimes quite different than science and then just working, for example, in the lab or working with some numbers or some factors that you have to consider every day, just like a routine, like a quality control that we just call it. For me, it's really honestly like depends. Yes, the science is important, but most important things for me is came from my personality, like the personality of always being curious about what's going on around you, how people they work, they do business, if they're happy with their work, they're not, what kind of skills they have, or what you can add more a basket as a person wanted to grow. So for me, like the combination of science and business was some things that lead me to that kind of feeling that I feel more happy or more ambitious, in my life. So that's
Mhm.
why I wanted to have that kind of combination.
And I could imagine that seeing that you've been in this sales job for a bit, that there's constantly a lot of things to learn with processing equipment.
Yes, exactly.
So one of the things that stood out to me is that with the equipment that you use, it's very personalized. It's not a one size fits all. And to me, it's amazing that any piece of equipment even gets designed, let alone installed. Like it's such a huge job. But I was wondering if you could maybe walk me through the process from if I was a customer that wanted to purchase something. How does that whole process go from idea to it's done and it's in the factory?
Sure. So I can say this way, usually the starting point of each company in the market looking for a new piece of equipment is when they have a problem to be solved. They need to be solved. There's a problem here. So what is the problem? So of course, sometimes there are some companies that want to establish and build a factory from the scratch. In this case, yes, they need to buy equipment as well, or even sometimes they're like very small startup and know they want to grow and they need to produce more product and they're looking for industrialized equipment or getting a new piece of equipment. But in all those cases, there should be a problem to be solved by having the right equipment. As a salesperson, sometimes you reach out to your customers and asking if they are struggling with something that your expertise can help them. And sometimes they find you and the conversation started from that point. And the process, Veronica, is very different. In a small companies, you may deal with the director of or the owner of the company directly. Usually you are talking with many people, including the operation managers, engineering team, sometimes R&D team, to see what is the main issue there, and also to obtain the important information from their process and product. This is very crucial to exactly know how they make their product and basically what is their goal to be reached. So you have to put yourself in customer shoes. You shouldn't look like a salesperson. You have to consider your customer and the priority over there. Also, there are many details that you or your team have to consider. Like, for example, the first and the main question, they want equipment, but do they have enough space to have that equipment on place? Or when they want the equipment to be installed, what is the date that they needed, which is really important because it's back to the shipment and if you can provide that date for them or not. Or what kind of training do they need? Who take care of the design and drawing, which is really important during the line, especially for the installation process. And what is the details of process, like for example, what the temperature range they need, what the humidity range they need, and if this is really considered in your equipment or not. Because sometimes customer, they want something you can do for them specifically for that equipment, sometimes you cannot. So the honesty is a really important part of this process. And finally, you make a quote for them. They sign the order confirmation, which is include all the details, including the shipping, the installation, the payments, everything. And then they give you the purchase order and they do the payment. So you basically, as a salesperson, coordinate all those details with your team, which is include engineering team, accountant team, supplier team, installation team, and operations team.
Wow. How do you even manage to keep track of all that?
I know the project is not, it depends, sometimes it's just fixing some things for them, and then you can deal with that like easily. But usually our project and basically even in Klever that we work at, sometimes even it took 2 years from the starting point that you see customer, for example, in a show, and the final decision and the final agreement and the final installation. And even after that, as a sales, you have to consider this is a continuous process. You do not want to have your customer just for one time and that's it. You wanted to have built in that kind of continuous relationship. And if you sell and if they're happy, you do everything's good, and then you start the warranty and the guarantee. So you're gonna have your customer at least for 2 years of warranty and for 10 years of warranty. It's a very long lasting relationship, and you have to be really careful exactly from the starting point to do everything's the best. For sure, between stuff happen that it's unpredictable, but it depends that how you are good and you are prepared at the first point, and how you can get the right information and work as a team, because the teamwork here is even huge part. And basically that's it.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I know that when you're working at a company that it's not, here's your piece of equipment, see you. Of course, not only do you want to have that ongoing relationship, which could lead to maybe in the future, continued sales, but these are large investments and you wouldn't want it to look ill if you weren't helping your customer.
Exactly. As I mentioned before, you have to put yourself in customer shoes. If you do that, and if you build that kind of trust and beside that kind of knowledge, and really try to get to know your customer. So what is their product, how they make it. Sometimes you need to even do your R&D, ask, for example, your supplier that, hey, we want to make this one, the process look like for the small batch, and how we can make it. And then you get all those information, and basically you just started from that point. But never thinking that it is easy, because it looks easy, but it should look logic. So there's a logic that you have to follow, and it's really important to everybody, just feeling happy about what they invest, and even you for giving them the continuous service for a long time.
Well, that's one of the nice things about being a salesperson, I can imagine, is that the end goal, of course, is to create a solution for the customer, but it's kind of just making people happy at the end of the day.
And yes, I think it's everything's because it's kind of a two-way relationship. I'm telling myself, even in the personal life, if even you with your parents, if you just ask them everything and not doing everything for them, if even your colleague or your friends, you couldn't be just person that always asking everything but not giving some things. It's just like asking and giving is both together, which makes everyone happy. But in sales, there's lots of also technical information that you shouldn't look like as a just selling person. You have to give them information because at the end, those information, those numbers, those design drawing and everything make the process happen. So there's lots of stuff besides the personal, I mean, relationship that you build with customers. There's lots of serious stuff that you have to take care of. And that's why I'm always saying people that if you want to be a good salesperson, you have to have a good team because you have that kind of power that people, they love you and they want to deal with you. But if you just long way, you do not provide them good information and you do not have a good team to do the proper installation, proper taking care of their process. So it's not the way that, okay, because they like me, so they're going to come back to me. No, this is a very professional situation, I can tell.
Are there team members that you have within your company that help with those types of aspects? Or I guess I'm just kind of curious about what, besides you, what are some of the other roles that are in Klever?
Yes, exactly. So basically, you are the person that's in front of the business. So there's a trade show, so you're going to the trade show, you are in LinkedIn reaching people, you are in the industry knowing about innovation, for example, food industry, which I am right now focused on that. Like as an example, I'm telling you, like right now, people they talking about the meat alternative and plant-based products. So this is some kind of innovation that right now we are actually dealing with that in food. And then as a salesperson, so you are the one that you should know that what's going on in the market. And you are the voice, you are the eyes to establish the new leads and new opportunity for the equipment or for the service that you can provide. When you do that, so when you find a lead, so you have to do your assessment. That's okay, there's a lead. So you actually start working on that, some basic question, and sometimes based on the equipment and based on what exactly from the process, some kind of series of a question. And then there's a point that you need to have your team because basically this equipment should install somewhere, should need a space to be on site. So you need dimension, you need drawing, you need design, you need a proper information about the process because basically you do not have experience or you do not have knowledge about everything. And this is actually work, I think, in most of the businesses. If you are just one person doing everything, so definitely it's not happen. So that's the way that when everything get more serious and you find out this is a serious lead, so you need to talk to them, you need to travel over there and then see everything most of the time. But nowadays, because of the COVID, everything get a little bit, crazy. But thanks God that everything now going better. But anyway, you have to bring your team, which and that point is your engineering team and your technical service team. So you go to the meeting with the customer and basically you talk about every details and about the process and about the product and what exactly they're looking for. So you bring that all those information to your supplier. And then definitely your supplier, they do have their own engineering team, their own designing team, their own R&D team. They may ask you some question that you have to ask basically from your customer. And as a salesperson, you are like a middle person connecting everything together and organizing and coordinating. And definitely, when the sales happen, so you do not have the knowledge of accounting, how the accounting work, how the taxes work, how the payment work. So you can discuss the payment with your customer, but you are not the one that preparing the invoice. So you have accounting. So basically you need accounting department, you need engineering and service managing department, and you are a salesperson. So in the company, I mean, that you selling equipment for them, definitely it's not even one person you dealing, because they also do operation manager, they do the R&D, and they do the engineering team, and they know what exactly they need. So you have to even talk to them, or they talk to you. And basically there's a team for the supplier, there's a team for the sales, which is Klever, and there's a team also for the customer. So these three teams, they work together and make the project happen at the end.
Okay, that makes more sense. And it also makes more sense why this job has been very well suited to someone like you who is an extrovert.
No, actually, I wanted to point at something here, that before that I had some kind of a feeling that, okay, if you are not an extroverted person that wanted to always talk with people, so you cannot be successful in sales. But this is not just about being extroverted. This is just about having that kind of passion to helping people at the right time and right way. So if you are that kind of person, and also, yeah, definitely. So talking always is good, because when you talk, you can talk about the problem, you can talk about what you like, what you don't like, and there's many stuff that you can talk. But this is not something that, okay, if I am not a person always wants to talk with people, so I cannot do the sales, because this is kind of professional job, and you don't need to always talk. Actually, you need to always listen to your customer. If you are a good listener, it's a win for you.
Ah, that makes more sense. Okay. So you say that listening is important. Has that been something that you grew to know over time? It's funny that I say that, but I know that active listening is actually a skill, and sometimes we have to work on it. I'm curious if that's something that's come natural to you, or you've had to keep reminding yourself over time.
Yeah, yeah. This is a very interesting question for me, to be honest. It's like some point funny, because I see myself is like sometimes too much extroverted, which is really hard for these kind of people that stop them and say, hey, I'm talking. So I was this way, like, I mean, when I started, especially my career as a salesperson, I feel that I need to convince people, they need to trust me. I'm a good person. So they need to listen to me. And then I grow up, you see people, you see experienced people, you see that how they do business, you're curious about how they are, successful, and you compare in a good way. You compare other people to yourself. Oh, they're doing sales, so how they are different than you. And during my journey, I really found out that, okay, it doesn't mean that you have to always talk. So customers, they really like that you listen to them, but active listening, as you mentioned, and which is really important. And yes, definitely, this is a huge skill, because they need to feel that you listen to them, and everything that they say is important to you. One of the practice that I did, and I want to share it here for you, Veronica, here, is that when I see my customer, I start to writing. So I try to listen to them, and when they speak, instead of jumping and then say something or get approved that, okay, you're right, or like, I mean, interrupting them, I try to write. And then when they see me that I'm writing, so basically this is a note for me that I can refer later, and really helping me. And also customer, they see that you're writing everything, so you listen to them, and basically you don't want to interrupt them. And definitely, so there's some point that they really like and enjoy talking with them. On that point, yes, you have to talk, and you have to show them your passion. You have to be yourself finally.
So simple. And I mean, but it works. Not only is it like a visual symbol, hey, I'm really taking into consideration, but I find that when I write stuff down, it also forces you to take a moment as well to kind of organize your thoughts and really concrete it into something that you're not just transcribing it, but like really actively listening and taking those key points out of it. So,
Exactly.
okay, simple, but it's effective.
Yes, it's effective, and you enjoy it. Finally, I just want to say that at the end, you have to enjoy whatever you do. You have to enjoy like talking to people, listening to them, they're talking to you, they listen. It's a two-way, so you cannot be just active or you cannot be just passive. So it's a active and passive, and definitely sometimes you get most of the information when you are silent. So I see even being silent as a key point, or even as some kind of equipment for myself to get most of everything. And why not? Because you have to, at the end, you have to be smart, and you have to know that how people enjoy working with you.
I know that with the thing that's happened with the pandemic, a lot of people have reevaluated their choices and where they're working and those types of things. And I definitely think there's more emphasis on truly trying to find work that's meaningful and you can enjoy, because, even for me doing this graduate degree and I was debating if I should continue on, I was like, the first question I asked myself is, do I actually enjoy this? Like actually sitting down, because you're right. You can't sustain working somewhere if you don't enjoy it.
Yes, that's the most important things. And like, I mean, definitely you will ask me that what piece of advice you're gonna have for people if they wanted to, for example, enter to this industry. I say it's not specific for, I mean, sales industry, or it's actually cover all industries. So you have to have a passion. Always asking, am I enjoying it? If you enjoy it, to be honest, like, I mean, everything is it's going to be ready for you, because you're not waiting for someone makes everything ready for you. You just yourself work on it and make that happen for yourself, as long as you enjoy it and you like it and you just have a passion for doing that.
That's the goal.
Yes.
And I know that too, with enjoying it, sometimes your interests also change, and what suited you for one aspect of your life was fine, but it's a question that you kind of got to keep asking yourself.
Yes. And I always asking, because sometimes you even feel scared because you really wanted something and it looks ambitious, and you try to question yourself, oh, this is looked very ambitious. Do I have to start from something that it's not really ambitious? I don't want to always be out of my comfort zone, because people, they prefer to focus on their comfort zone, and it's really difficult for them when something happened, or when they get some kind of motivation that it needs to go after, or to not be in your comfort zone. It's happened also for me, for everyone. So basically my study is in science. I just could live in a lab and do the job, which I know some people, they really enjoy it, and also I enjoy it. But in some point, I felt that there should be another word out of here, which could combine, I mean, my passion and my feeling and my progress, whatever that I do right now. And I find it, and it wasn't easy, because you have to get out of your comfort zone, which I did it. Especially when I came to Canada, everything was new for me, and I hadn't any customer that I built during that 7 years that I was in my previous country. So you have to be a little bit more independent, and just trusting yourself and your passion, and put yourself out. And this is something that you have to do it, and no one can tell you that what exactly you should do. I know that people always, they feel that maybe someone should tell them do something, but in reality it's not this way. So you are the best judge of yourself, and you are the best motivator of yourself. This is my attitude.
That is great advice. And even hearing if someone's listening to this podcast, and this might just be their signal to start thinking about those types of things. And it also prompts the idea as well that I've been thinking about this myself, although I have no intentions of moving out of country. A lot of people in my lab, for example, they are currently doing a study here, and I have lab mates from Brazil, the Netherlands, all over the world. The amount of courage it takes to immigrate to a new country and just start, you're not familiar with the customs. And I don't know, I just want to acknowledge that it's really impressive and amazing and courageous to me.
Yes, I say, like, as a professional person, because when I came here, I never had, that kind of, yes, I just did have some kind of cultural barrier, because definitely before that, I just not living in such a country for a long time, and I just came as a travel or tourist. And when you just go there as a tourist, or just like for a few days travel, always you enjoy and you see the good and amazing things, and always you're inspired. But when you just go somewhere and you want it to real life, I mean, start working, I mean, dealing with people, and especially in Canada, like we're more than like 100 nations that we live peacefully together. And for me, it was such an interesting moment that I just made it happen the way that you connect with people. And the only job that I could have that kind of feeling and connection and use all strong feeling that I have about my journey, it was like sales. It was like doing business, because that's the professional language that I could have beside the personal language that I could have to be able to connect with different people.
Well, I think sales is the job where you're connecting with people, but we've learned about your transition going into the food manufacturing, like processing equipment. But I wanted to know, with what you're doing right now, do you have any piece of equipment that kind of get you more excited than the others, or something that you really love selling?
Yes, definitely. To be honest, you should enjoy the whole process, but you have something like personal and you say, oh, I like this one more than, other stuff. And maybe sometimes you try more to have that one for a long time. So,
Yes.
so the new things that I enjoy working in Klever, and I never try it because it wasn't even some kind of trend or some kind of food flavor that we just do have it even, or even in my previous country was like a smoking. When I came to North America, I saw that people, they enjoy some kind of smoky flavor, especially for meat and fish, like basically like a smoked meat. And this is kind of culture in North America, in Europe, but it's not in my country.
Because I'm in North America, I
Yes.
know that there's cultural differences, but I don't know why I expected that to be more, I don't want to say the word acceptable, but more interesting, I guess you could say, to other cultures.
Yes, for me, I saw that here. Like, I mean, my colleagues, they really love like the smoky flavor, especially even for meat and also for cheese. So we do have lots of cheese in back home, but it's
Uh-huh.
like a smoky flavor. And then I start, okay, so Clever has a smokehouse equipment. And then it was really like right away, like a spontaneously right away for me was the first thing that I wanted to know, and I wanted to learn that how the process work, and then how the equipment work, which kind of
Mhm.
flavor, and then how these flavors happen in the equipment. So it was really interesting if I'm telling you that everything basically starts from the chemical reaction. So there's a chemical reaction that we just call it Maillard reaction or brownish reaction. It means that the protein in on the surface of the meat, it actually start reacting with the specific element in the wood, which is lignin. And then when it actually get heat in the smoke generator, so get heats, and then you bake or you make, I mean, cook that meat. So it caused the meat color to get brownish, and also to get that kind of smoke flavor because of that reaction happening that I told you between the protein on the surface of the meat and also the lignin on the wood. So for me, was interesting because this is a very interesting chemical reaction, which
Mhm.
helped me to know, because I have that chemistry background, and you have to know the chemistry behind that. A smokehouse and has the equipment. So I just got everything at the same basket, which is really interesting for me. And when you are in front of your customer and you just try to explain to them that what is this reaction and how it's happened. So to be honest, they really enjoy it because they feel that, oh, you have that science background, and they can explain for you which kind of flavor they want, because they can have a intense smoke flavor, they can have a moderate, and they can have a light. And you know that what does that mean by that kind of flavor, what is the chemistry behind. And on the other hand, you know that how you can actually customize or even operate the equipment or put these factors in the equipment computer that give them that kind of flavor that they're looking for. So that was a interesting part for me that I wanted to share.
Oh, that is so much fun. I mean, thinking about it, we go at home, we buy our ingredients, and we're kind of stuck with the same, for the most part, the same stove, the same, all those types of things that are in kitchen. But working on like this industrial level, you kind of get to have fun and really help the customers out and like really help with that journey with the idea of like, this equipment's going to have this flavor, or if you process it for this amount of time, you'll get this smoky flavor. That just sounds so much fun.
Exactly. So basically, the industrial is like you have something, as a small batch, and know you wanna have more production. So you just go to make it industrial. So we in the house, or when we do like routine cooking, so we're just working on a small batch. Like every food, even as a lunch or dinner, we just eat is a small batch. So
Mhm.
when you scale it up and you bring it to the industry using the industrial equipment, you do the same, but you do it with the bigger batch. And then definitely the factors that you have to consider when you make your food. So the same factor you have to consider when you make it industrial. So that seems simple.
It is definitely not simple, especially dealing with consistency too. I think we take it for granted too, like going to the grocery store, we buy a product and we expect it to taste the same every single time. But I guess it goes to show the proper equipment makes the difference to get that consistency and just make something that the customer loves and always goes back to.
Exactly.
Well, we are near the end of our time, and this hour has honestly like blown by. I don't know where the time has gone, but I guess that goes to show how fun I've had with this conversation. So before I go, I do have just one. I have two more questions. One's a simple one, and one's a really quick one. I want to just throw it in there. Do you have any favorite quotes or anything? I know that we kind of talked about this before the show.
Yeah, definitely. Like as I told you, you wanted to see your job like even as a professional person, but even I'll always say that you have to bring some kind of personal feeling and personal taste to the table to feel that okay, I'm living my life full. And when people get to this point, so they really enjoy their life. And for me, to be honest, like sometimes I saw that people, they say that you shouldn't have to be like the same person when you are in a professional position than in a personal position. For me, it's not this way because I always, try to love whatever I do, if this is personal in my personal life or if this is professional. So it's the same for me. And I saw that because I wrote a book, and it's the book name is Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a very interesting book, and I really recommend people, especially young people, if they want to do even sales or do business. So they can read this book because there's lots of point on it, and it says in some point it says that if you want to sell something, you have to sell your first at first. I thought that what does that mean? So you have to sell yourself. So what is the meaning behind? And to be honest, I feel that right now, because if you are that kind of person that people can trust you, people at least can talk to you, can rely on you, then they can actually rely and they can see further. They can see that, okay, I can trust this person. I can trust what she or he is saying, and I can buy or I can trust his or her expertise to invest. So this is some kind of, a slogan that always I try to sell myself to customer, that what kind of person I am, and I do not want it to pushy to selling something. I just try to, work as a consultant or as a good professional, friends or colleague with them. And then when you build this one, so every good things happen for you. In some point, they just come back to you and they ask you more and more. So this is something I wanted to say.
First of all, I gotta recommend that book too. It's a really eye-opening book just to get you thinking about money in a different perspective. But to what you said as well, I really like that. And I believe in karma too. And just it's not always about pushing sales like right immediately, and just even like finding a job in general. Just putting out good vibes out to the world. I find that it does somehow come back. So not only is it good for you, but just being good to others just makes you a better
Yeah,
person.
exactly. And like always be the biggest investment you have it is your network. It is the people around you.
Yes.
So for me, it was great because I came here as almost like have no friends and no family, just came by myself. And during my journey, like the new place, I built that kind of network and relationship. And I feel right now that I have, good people around me, which is in some point a biggest investment, for you.
Well, I'm going to leave it at that because you've said some great things and I don't want to take away from that. So the last question I'm going to leave is, where can people find you?
Sure, definitely LinkedIn is the best place that people they can find me, and I can share my knowledge, my expertise, or even I can learn from them. So if people they just message me and they just say some notes, because always I try to, when I reach to people, I try to just talk about a little bit journey and why I am interested.
I'll make sure to share that in the show notes. So once again, thank you, Somayeh, for coming on this show. I love your energy. I love this conversation. And you've given me another career perspective. You coming out of like a physical chemistry background, which is kind of in mine. So who knows, maybe the future goes to show that you can switch it up. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Veronica. Again, I want to say it was a pleasure talking to you and also learning from you.
That was episode 33 of the FoodGrads Podcast. All the notes to this podcast can be found on the FoodGrads website by clicking the podcast tab on the homepage. There you can find any notes to past or future episodes. If you like this podcast but wanted to get your questions asked live, then make sure you check out our partnership with Careers Now and their interactive mentorship sessions, where guest speakers who currently work in the industry will describe their career journeys, motivations, and aspirations in the food and beverage industry. From when this episode is being released till February 15th, 2022, Careers Now will have guests from all across the industry, with the potential of more to come. So if you want to check that out, then check out the link in the show notes for this episode. Anyways, that's it for this week's podcast. Thank you everyone so much for listening, and I will see you next time.